Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are lucky, lucky dogs to be here today with Bernie Siegal. I'll tell you, I got to know Bernie when I was a child, like young. He doesn't know this story, but his book, um, Magic, Medicine, and Miracles,
Of
was
medicine and miracles.
Love, Medicine, and Miracles, excuse me, was on our kitchen table for years. And my dad was a veterinarian, and we had a home veterinary practice. So a veterinary hospital was connected to our home in rural Vermont, and that book was something that really guided him as a healer, and guided my introduction into life of what doctors could do. Yes,
I interrupt you
please.
a minute because I took one of our dogs to the veterinarian, and several of the books, if they go to my website, you'll see Love, Animals, and Miracles. I mean, our house was a zoo, and I'm not kidding when I say that. But the dog was so sick, I took him to the vet. He said he has cancer. I've never seen a dog this sick recover. So while you're here, let's euthanize him. I said, wait a minute, I've got to call the kids. I can't come home with a dead dog. So I called the house. I have 5 children. One of the kids answered. Good, it was him. And I said, look, we need to put Oscar to sleep. He's so sick. And Jeffrey said, no, you don't put your patients to sleep. You don't put Oscar to sleep. So I said to the vet, I can't. I have to take him home. I brought him home. Then what occurred to me is, why don't you treat him like one of your patients who was told they're going to die? Love him. Spend time with him. So whenever I wasn't at the hospital, whenever I was home, I would literally at times sit on the floor and have my dinner when I gave him a meal. I loved him, petting him, spending time with him, all the things I would tell a patient. This is what you need to experience. In about 2 weeks, he was up walking around, and I thought, that's funny. He's not dying anymore. So I might as well put him outside with the other dogs. So we put him outside, and he lived for over 3 years. And I always remember the veterinarian saying, I have never seen a dog like that recover, because the cancer disappeared. Yeah. And he lived for over 3 years. But he taught me that what I was preaching was true. You know what I mean? Here's a dog. He didn't read my book, and have faith. He felt the change. And I really thought, because he was the third dog, he felt he doesn't love me as much as the others. And that's why he ends up getting sick. And so here he gets loved and turns everything around.
Thank you.
And I may say that's not blaming people for getting sick. It's how they grow up, their experience.
Yeah.
Loving children is the most important thing that can ever happen to them. And one of the things I say now is the greatest vaccine I know of is love. Harvard students were asked, did your parents love you? This is a study done a couple of decades ago. No, they don't love me. Harvard students were asked, the parents love you? And some said, yeah, my parents love me. When they were looked up decades later, 90% of those who said my parents didn't love me had suffered a major illness by middle age. If they said, yeah, my parents loved me, 24% had suffered a major illness. So what a difference that makes. Wow. And the doctors don't preach it. It's more the philosophers, who talk to you about love. Yeah.
Let me just do a moment of introduction. This is Bernie Siegal. As you can tell, he is a spitfire, and I am just honored and privileged and in a state of joy that we get to start the year of the School for Sacred Storytelling with him and the amazing stories, and his angel. As he told me, there's an angel his angel is here speaking along with him. And just to give you a little bit of context, if you didn't read his bio, he was a pediatric surgeon, and he writes about the relationship between the patient and the healing process. And I'm not going to talk much more because he's going to say a lot. You know? But what I will say is that how many people here brought a drawing of something that they want to know more about? Did anyone get a chance to do that? A couple of you? One or two? Okay. So there will be an opportunity at some point to share that. And 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 if you have questions, please place them in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll take breaks throughout along the way. And what we're doing is we're really looking at, take this moment to really. I don't know why I want to say this. Listen between your ears. I have no idea where that's coming through, do that kind of deep listening about your story of health and this relationship of story, of language, of words. And that's what Bernie's going to be guiding us through, and really looking at all the while you're listening to him. I'm just inviting you to continuously look at, putting it through the context of School for Sacred Storytelling. What is our collective story that we're in? What is the personal story? And how can we bring healing to it? I think that's part of the game for today. So I'm going to pass the reins back on over, and so excited to be with you today.
George's first thought was that word, how important words are. Because when people would, give you an example, ladies in the emergency room, a couple of weeks of migraine headaches, they're admitting her to the hospital. She's not my patient. And I'm talking in the emergency room. And you know how I talk. And the nurse came over and said, Dr. Seigel, lower your voice. She's got intense pain. You're making it worse, by speaking so loudly. So I said, okay, I'm sorry. And I went to see her because I wanted to help her. I went in and I said, I'm going to do a meditation with you. We'll relax you, see if we can relieve the pain. Because she was waiting for a hospital bed. And in the meditation, though, I played tricks. I said, what word would you use to describe your pain? She said, pressure. So I went on without asking her, what's the pressure in your life? How does this word fit in your life? What's causing you pressure and so forth. And we did a meditation on it to relieve the pressure. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, I left her and she was feeling a little more relaxed. About 25 minutes later, the nurse calls my name. Hey, Dr. Seigel. Yeah, what is it? It's her marriage. Her headache is gone. She went home. Now, that impressed the hell out of me. She's about to be admitted to the hospital and realizes the pressure in her life is her marriage. And instead of being admitted to the hospital, she goes home to fix the marriage. And one other that impressed me was a lady who developed cancer. And I said, what are you experiencing? Failure. I said, how does that fit your life? Well, my body failed. I said, that's not my question. How does failure fit your life? Oh, my parents committed suicide when I was a child. I must have been a failure as a child. And talk about not feeling loved as well as feeling like a failure. She's blaming herself. So, and it helps me too. Many years ago, because I just look and I have a journal I found from 1996. And the other day I read, vertigo again. I used to have attacks of vertigo and I couldn't do anything. I had to lie down. I mean, I could try to convert it and do different things. But one day I got out of bed, I was so dizzy I had to lie down again. And I said to myself, hey, stupid, do what you tell your patients to do. What are you going through? I said, well, the world is spinning around. Yeah, you're doing too damn much. So your body is putting you in bed to take care of you. Because literally, I was traveling all over the world. My wife's lecturing, speaking. I mean, if you looked at my calendar, you'd faint because there wasn't a day I wasn't doing something, plus being a surgeon and everything else. Yeah, and even one of my partners, I made out the calendar for the year. You know, when I was working, they were working. He said, "Did you notice something? What? The days you're working, you made as darker days." Think about that. And boy, that helped me. You know, how I saw my work and my time and what was happening. That really woke me up. And that's why, you know, I mentioned to you about pictures. So the calendar for next year became like a picture. What days are you happy when you're not on call, you know, as a surgeon? Yeah. And oh, it's hard for me to stop. See, George, oh, I'll tell you about him after this story. Um, I was having a lot of pain from being a surgeon that I couldn't cure people, and especially with children. Why did God give the kids these problems? You know, genetic defects, all kinds of things. And I went to a workshop with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She said to me, Bernie, because she was Swiss, draw a picture for me. I drew a picture of a meditation that I had experienced at a workshop, outdoor scene, my inner guide that I met, and other things. And she immediately said to me, "Why is 11 important to you?" I said, "What are you talking about? You draw 11 trees." I said, "Yeah, I've been doing this work 11 months with cancer patients." "What are you covering up?" "What do you mean?" "You used a white crayon on a white piece of paper. It's already white. You didn't need a crayon to make snow on a mountain." And by the time she was done, my whole life was on this stupid little piece of paper, and it meant nothing to me when I drew it. And my inner guide was that I had met was named George. I was disappointed because I wanted Jesus or Moses or Abraham or somebody with, you know, because somebody walks up to you and says, "Hi, my name is George." Ugh. But he has been seen at least twice. I mean, I know he learned he was there because one night I was giving a lecture and I realized you're not paying any attention to your outline or your notes. You're just standing here talking. And I thought to myself, yeah, but it's good. So go ahead. First lady, after my lecture was done, came up to me from the audience, said, "I've heard you before. That was better than usual." I said, "I agree with you." The next woman said, "Standing in front of you for your entire lecture was this man. So I drew his picture for you." And I said, "Oh my, that's George." And, you know, I had drawn his picture too for Elizabeth. So, you know, I'm not making this up. And then a couple of years later, and it's interesting, both times this was in a spiritual center called Mercy Center in Connecticut. Um, I spoke at a Christian funeral, friend of mine. Elizabeth, no, I mean, Alga Worrell, the mystic, was there because she knew the person too. I don't know if you've read any of her books, but they're incredible. But she and her husband were, you know, they saw spirits even when they were kids. Because I mean, one story of hers was as a kid, she walked into this house with the family and she said, "Who's the old lady on the sofa?" And they said, "There's no old lady sitting on the sofa." "Oh, yes, there is." And she described her. It was the grandmother who had died who lived in the house. And that woke everybody up, you know, for a kid to do that. So she came over to me. She said, "Bernie, you Jewish?" I said, "What are you asking me that for? Because I spoke at a Christian funeral?" "No, there's a rabbi standing here." And I said, "Oh my God, that's George." Because she described every detail of his clothing. Because when I met him in my meditation, I thought, why is he dressed so funny? But then I realized why he was dressed that way. And it wasn't funny anymore. But he's been with me. And if you want, I can talk about this a little more later too. When I was 4 years old, I was imitating workmen in our house. And I took a toy telephone apart and put the pieces in my mouth and aspirated them, was choking to death. And I can tell you, that's the most painful thing that's ever happened to me in my life, trying to breathe and you can't. And I was so happy to leave my body. Oh, what a pleasure at age 4. I mean, besides not hurting anymore, imagine being 4 years old and floating around the room, seeing, thinking, except you don't have a body. And I started talking to God because I thought he's in charge. And I said, I prefer being dead if you don't mind. I know my mother will be upset, but I'd rather be dead. This is really wonderful and exciting and interesting. And then my friend George, and I realized this years later when I learned what the Heimlich maneuver was, because the body on the bed was picked up and moved, and all the pieces came flying out. And I realized George did the Heimlich maneuver and saved my life. So, I mean, you can't describe the sensation. I said it's like being sucked into a vacuum. Phew, I'm back in the body. And my first words were, "Who did that?" Because I was mad as hell. But then I thought, well, there must be a God and it's not up to me. So stop screaming and being rude and, just get back into living again. But so he's been with me since age 4. And he said, you weren't supposed to die at age 4. That's why I did that, because you weren't supposed to die. And he has intervened many times in my life. When I've had, auto accidents, not my fault, when people go through red lights. I fell off the roof of our house when a ladder broke and landed on my feet. And nothing was injured. I mean, I did fall over, lost my balance and gave my head a little bump on the pavement. But I mean, I didn't end up in an emergency room or anything. And so I began to realize, yeah, somebody is watching over me. And then I started hearing voices. And whenever I would be walking, jogging, riding a bike, some repetitive kind of activity, I'd hear a voice. And it wasn't always some profound things, but I always listened to it. I mean, one of the things that made an enormous difference was the day my father had said he's ready to die. We arranged a time for everybody to come to his hospital room and let him die then with everybody there. That morning, I went for a walk before going to the hospital, and a voice said, "How did your parents meet?" I said, "I don't know." And the voice said, "Then ask your mother when you get to the hospital." And again, to make a long story short, because I felt bad not saying I love you when I walked in the room, what came out of my mouth was, "How did you two meet?" And my mother told the story, which ended in, I was with girls who had a bad reputation. I was on vacation. I didn't know them, on the beach. And your father came down the beach with some boys. He lost the coin toss and had to get me. So my father took my mother out the first time because he lost the coin toss. And I won't tell you all the other stories she told us, but my father died laughing, looking so healthy. I thought he was going to say, "This is a lot of fun. Let's try next week," dying. But it impressed the hell out of everybody there, especially children who were afraid of death. And they looked at me and said, "Is this what dying is like?" Because it was such a beautiful event. And he looked so healthy. I really thought he was going to say, "I'll die next week," because he was having so much fun. But he had promised. So again, he doesn't know who's coming, but intuitively he does. When the last person who walked in the room was announced, who said they were coming, there were about 24 people. He took his last breath and died. So all these mystical things, and part of why, because I meant early on when you were introducing, why I tell these things. Don't you care? People say, "Oh, he's crazy. There's no point in staying here and listening to him." If you want to know the truth, be crazy. Okay? I tell stories. They're true. Then doctors can't yell at me like they used to. "That's not statistically valid. That was a poorly controlled study." I would tell a story. And then they'd say, that was just a story. They didn't feel threatened, see? So tell the story. Why? Because when you're a doctor in the hospital who's known for being a little crazy, and your patients too, but that was a compliment because my crazy patients didn't die when they were supposed to. You know, they didn't have side effects to drugs, all kinds of things. And the doctors would call me and say, you know, thank you. I saw your name in the charts. I knew it was a crazy patient. So I said, why don't you have a reaction to the treatment? I get out of the way, let it go to my tumor. So the doctors stopped criticizing me and started enjoying the patients. But I would get phone calls. Can you come to my hospital room, please? You're not my doctor, but I know I can talk to you. So you go to a room. Woman had a heart-lung transplant. And she said, the person whose heart and lungs are in me is talking to me. And everybody thinks I'm crazy. And one night he came, told her his name, and said, we're together forever. And she wrote a book called The Change of Heart, Claire Sylvia. So once we had his name, because the hospital wouldn't give me his name to look up an obituary because they weren't allowed to reveal personal information. But once we had his name, her family began searching obituaries and found him and called the family. And they said, oh, yes, she has his heart and lungs. And she had taken a motorcycle ride for the first time in her life. And they said, oh, yes, that was his birthday. He loved motorcycles. He died in an accident. Oh, and the funniest part was when she woke from surgery, they said to her, what would you like to eat? I'll have beer and chicken McNuggets. And then she said, wait a minute, I've never had those. You know, that's what made her realize something's going on. And they said, yeah, he loved those things. And he died with a bucket of chicken McNuggets in his jacket, you know, coming home from the store. But again, you're not going to hear those stories unless people feel safe with you. And the hard part is when you try to contribute them, and even the drawings I asked some of you to do, because like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, when she told me the meanings of different colors and time on the page, even dying, you know, a purple balloon going up in the air with your name on it, I started giving the crayons to my patients and saying, draw a picture. And it could be something, draw yourself in the operating room, say, draw yourself getting a treatment. And if the devil was giving you poison, you're going to have every complication there is. Or if you said, I don't know who to marry, I could say, draw the people you're thinking of marrying. I'll tell you who's the right one by the way it's portrayed. Now, I sent a lot of these drawings and articles to Medical Journal. It came back saying, it's interesting, but it's not appropriate for a journal. So I sent it to a psychiatry journal. Came back again. It's appropriate, but it isn't interesting. We know this. That's the part that upsets me. That when you go to see a doctor, they either are treating your head or your body. But they're not realizing the two things go together. See, that's the part that I began to realize when I started writing books, because I met people who I thought were dead. And I'd say, why don't you come back to the office? What's the point? Everybody's telling me I'm going to die. I mean, this is not me in my office, but they're oncologists. And I would say, how come you didn't die when you were supposed to? They all had a story. It wasn't luck. I never wanted to be a lawyer. My parents forced me. I wanted to play a violin. They tell me I'm dying of cancer, quit the office, got a violin, job in an orchestra. I'm not dead. Years later, I bought a dog. The one I loved was a guy said, I'm going to Colorado to die in the mountains. It's beautiful. I said to the family, call me. I'm close to him. I'll come to the funeral. A year goes by, no phone call. And he was supposed to die in a couple of months. So I called up to yell at the family. He answered the phone. And he said, It was so beautiful here, I forgot to die. You know, it's those simple things that people did reclaiming their lives. And then their body gets the message. Monday morning, we have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses. What's wrong with Monday? What people are feeling on Monday. So pay attention to your life and the message you give your body. And, don't blame yourself, but look at what are the choices? Because the statement that I heard from so many people with AIDS and cancer and all kinds of diseases was, let your heart make up your mind. When you live in your heart, magic happens. And they put them, like signs in their kitchen, on the cabinets in the bathrooms, the refrigerator. So when they'd walk in, boom, there was their therapy. Let your heart make up your mind. So you paid attention to your feelings. And something I mentioned to you before we came on was Solzhenitsyn's book, Cancer Ward. You see, when I would say to people, why did you die when you were supposed to? They always had a story. They didn't say, oh, it's a spontaneous remission. I was lucky. They always told me a story about what they did in their life. And in Solzhenitsyn's book, which I always say to people, read fiction if you want to know the truth. Because here are two things. One is a poem called Miss G. A doctor comes home from the office, says to his wife, cancer's a funny thing. Childless women get it, and men when they retire. It's as if there had to be an outlet for their foiled creative fire. Now, a doctor at Yale yelled at me, just because it rhymes doesn't make it true. See, he can't accept the fact that a poet wrote that. Now, why would a poet say that if he didn't experience it in his life? He's not going to make up a poem like that, you see. And I knew that people had stories. It wasn't blaming them. I would say, what's going on in your life in the last year or so before you got sick? That, things that may have contributed. So the symbol from Solzhenitsyn is the rainbow-colored butterfly. The butterfly has to bust out of a cocoon. So it takes some work to change your life. And what is the rainbow-colored butterfly? What's a rainbow? Everything's in harmony, in order. And every color has meaning as well as time. So in your pictures that you drew, count things too. Because it's like if you had 6 stars in the sky or 4 trees, all those numbers could mean something to you. And as I say, the colors, red is an emotional color. Orange is change. Yellow is energy. Blue and green are healthy colors. Purple is the spiritual. How do I help people with that? As we said, white is the cover up. Black is grief and despair. But you come into one of your patients and she's drawn this big purple balloon with her name in it floating up in the sky. At the bottom of the page is a child in green and yellow with tears. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. Green and yellow are 2 healthy colors, and you're dying? I said to her, well, what's going on here? She said, that's not me. That's the kid in the next room crying. And that's what I found so fascinating. Here is a child who alters the colors when she draws the kid in the next room, you see. And when she draws something about herself, then you see the message about her dying. And I said to a mother who was going nuts trying to save her life and taking her everywhere, I said, Patty, it's time to stop. She's ready to go. Take her home and love her. Now, there were 8 flowers on the page. I said, I don't know what that means. That's a nice decoration, but I have no idea what the number 8 means. 8 days later, I get a phone call from Patty. Bernie, what? Amber woke up today, said, Mom, I'm dying today as a gift to you to free you from all the trouble. It was her mother's birthday. So I'm dying today as a gift to you. And Patty gave me that. I have that drawing hanging in my house. I never forget Amber. But the gift of that drawing allowed Patty to let her daughter go, without grief and despair and trying to save her life. It was time. And I've learned. So, as Jung said, the future is unconsciously prepared long in advance and therefore can be guessed by clairvoyance. Now, I've had not only near death, but a past life in which my wife was a part of it. And I don't know, we get time, I'll discuss that too. But I learned, you can use the drawings to help you make decisions, use them with your family, especially with kids who weren't worried about being artists. Adults are a pain in the butt. I'm not an artist. I can't draw a picture for you. I don't have time to read a book. But the kids, yeah. One came in with her mother and said, I'm afraid my daughter has a lymphoma. It runs in our family. She has these large lymph nodes in her neck. But I know you like pictures and drawings, so I had my daughter draw pictures. She drew herself all swollen on the right side. And then the other one was this enormous cat with claws several inches long. And I said to the mother, don't worry. She said, what do you mean? Your daughter has cat scratch fever. Look what she drew, And I was right. I mean, the mother, wasn't so sure. I wasn't crazy. But we took out one of the nodes, which is all infected. And definitely she had cat scratch fever. But, once people learned those things, they weren't so hesitant about coming to me and doing drawings and helping me. And I've used it, as I say, in my own life.
Since we have a group of folks that have drawn pictures, could we see a couple of them and have you speak to them?
Sure.
And then Gary is asking if you can repeat the meaning of colors.
Yeah. One thing I also want to say, once you say that, sometime when you're in a mixed group of white and black people, say to them, I have a picture of one of you, and you have no idea who it's a picture of. So what is it a picture of? Adults look at you like you're nuts. You got a black person and a white person, and I can't tell who it is. The kids know what I'm asking. They immediately take their hand and point to their chest because I'm holding up a picture of a heart. And I say, yeah, we're all the same color inside. Right. So the people who are spiritual and young know the right answer to that. The others look at me like, what kind of stupid idiot are you? How can I not know who your picture is of? Yeah. But we're all the same color inside. Remember that. Now, what was your question again? There was something else you had asked me to.
Gary had asked if you could repeat the meaning of different colors.
Yeah. Red is an emotional color. Okay. Orange is symbolic of change. And where does it come from? Yellow is energy. So you put the energy and the emotions and you get change. It makes sense. Blue is a healthy, natural color. You add the yellow to that, you get green, like all the leaves growing in energy. Purple is blue and red and is a spiritual color. So I don't know if I went through them all. Purple, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And white is a cover-up. And black is grief and despair. Oh, I see physical therapists for all kinds of things that have happened to me. I was injured by a chiropractor. But they repainted the office. And I felt it was awful. they painted it gray. You don't go in there and feel good, but I think it's the symbol of what the therapist who runs the place is feeling. All the grief of all these people, and he wants to cover up their troubles, you know, but that's not curing or healing them. And if he had put in some really lovely colors, people would be energized when they walked in and feel good with the surroundings. And these things are shown in hospitals. I mean, they've done tests where you hang, you know, colorful paintings of the outdoors on the wall of the room, and people had less pain and went home sooner than abstract paintings with just crazy colors, but no symbols in them, no meaning in them. And I may add, at the therapy place, the only paintings they have on the wall are sort of gray, white, black, abstract paintings, and nobody gets cheered up looking at them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Who has images? Who has something that they would like? Oh, we've got some bold people. Grace, do you want to hold up your image so we can see it?
Okay, actually, I have several images, and I probably didn't follow directions. I didn't follow your directions. What I did was I sat down and asked, what's the most important thing for me to know today that will help me contribute to the global story, heal the global story and my own story. So then I just took down all the light language I was feeling, because I can't put everything in human language sometimes. Dear God.
Now, what are those symbols meant to mean? All the lines and crosses.
Yeah, so that's just the light language that comes through. It's symbols that come through that is supposed to contain something, some message,
Come
something
through
healing
what?
that I cannot process.
What did they come through?
They just come through the way light language comes through me. And it's like a frequency that is supposed to be healing for our bodies, because our bodies respond to sound and frequency. So it captures a frequency that I cannot do in
Why
human.
are there columns?
Oh, it just feels right. It just flows better when I do it that way. I don't know why. So this is just the first page when you start it. And then after you started, for some reason you were sticking to the same stories or something. So then
Now, is that red there or orange?
it's orange and green. So
All right.
orange and green.
The green is a healthy color, orange is change.
Yeah. So
What's interesting to me, though, is why separate them into little, you know, spaces and boxes and
yeah. Well, the
lines?
next image will make more sense. So the next image is what came through differently.
Right.
But I still started with some light language, and then it became symbols that everybody can understand. It's
You know,
grass. It's a star, and then it's grass. It's actually a star.
it's what?
It's a star. It's a heart star. It's a heart star that's flowing through time.
What is
Star.
it supposed to mean? Why did you draw it?
Why did I draw it? It just came through. It just feels right to let the heart come through the sky.
Hmm?
The heart. It's a heart
I look
star.
at, you know, all the colors. What are all the little colors? Are they little hearts inside it?
Yeah, they're little hearts.
All right. Most of them, I believe, are red. Some are orange.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if any are purple. It's hard to tell looking through. Um,
I have purple butterflies and red
yeah,
butterfly and
the
blue
butterfly,
butterfly.
yeah, is a symbol of change.
Yeah. And then you can see the star, the heart, and then I'm trying to draw a bird. Okay.
Now, what's interesting on the page, the lower right is the past. And that's where what are the two things you said were there?
Oh, butterflies.
Yeah, that there were changes in the past, that make you who you are today. The upper left is the far future. And what you say is that?
It's a bird. It's a red bird.
What color is that?
Uh, it's a pink purple, kind of magenta. Magenta?
All right. I mean, a spiritual, I would say, is something that's coming into your life if it's in the upper
Oh,
left there.
okay.
I mean, the picture for others too. The upper right is the present. The lower right is the recent past. The upper left is the far future, and the lower left is the distant past.
Hmm.
And I must say that when people are ready to die, more often than not, the purple balloon or kite is in the upper left. Yeah, I mean, one woman at the hospital drew this purple kite going up in the sky. I said, "You ready to go?" But her husband was flying the kite. And she said, "Yeah, but he can't let go." I said, "Then bring him in and talk to him." And he said, "Honey, I cut the string. If you need to go, it's okay." And a couple of days later, she did. But think about why you're not. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a star. It's nice to be a star with colors. But think of what that means to you. And also, why not a person? Why can't the person be the star? The other is numbers mean something. So I'd say count all the color dots inside that star and see if that number means anything.
Okay.
Let's take one more. And for clarity, for the assignment that Bernie offered us, he asked us to draw something that we really wanted to understand more about. I see Rosemary, are you?
It's just, yeah, it's my hand, my arthritic hand.
Yeah, but
I'm
now
a driver.
let me say this. As I said, to interpret a drawing, you need to know the person had all the colors available.
Oh,
Because I remember one little boy came in the operating room, the whole picture was black.
got it.
And it really scared me. I said, "What's going on in your life, your home, and the operating room? Everything's black." He said, "Yeah, I got 3 older brothers. That's the only color they give me." So I didn't have to worry about him. But there are times, yeah, the kids were feeling their parents brought them to have them cut up. You know what I mean? And
I
it
understand.
showed in the drawing, and as well as the intuitive, because when the staff realized Seigel isn't crazy, this is interesting,
Mhm.
they made a coloring book for the kids to draw. And it says, "You'll meet an anesthesiologist. He's dressed in an outfit that looks like green pajamas." So because the kids were supposed to color in the book while they're waiting for surgery. And then we knew how they felt about everything. But when he drew them in red, I said to the anesthesiologist, "This scares me." He said, "You're right. His mother has muscular dystrophy.
Mhm.
He could have an adverse reaction to muscle relaxants, and it could threaten his life." So I said, "Look at the last page. If he draws himself purple, I'm sending him home." But the last page was just the red and black. I'm not happy. And, so I knew he'd survive and go home.
Mhm.
All right. Now hold that up again. Let me look.
Okay, so I need to color it in, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
But I think that, again, it is the black. See, that it's like, what's wrong with your hand? Even how twisted it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have arthritis or
Yes, really bad arthritis.
you
Yes.
do. All right. Yeah. That, and it could be symbolic in the sense of getting a grip on things too. So
Okay.
it's not only the physical, but the emotional.
Mhm.
All right. And love your hand. I mean it.
I do love my hand. I massaged them today.
Good. Take time during the
Yeah.
day to love your hand. Let me give you a specific example.
Okay.
Lady had polio as a child. Due to the muscle loss, she said, "I never liked my body."
Mm.
Then she developed a neurological disease, and more things are happening to her. And she said, I didn't want to die hating my body. It just felt wrong. So I laid down naked in front of a mirror every day and started loving my body with my toes. And then I go an inch further up, and then another inch, and then another inch. And
Beautiful.
she went into complete remission. The disease disappeared. This is Princess. She always comes to check on me. And there are times she has repaired the computer. You know, when you say there are no coincidences, now I'm trapped with her toenails. Princess, wait a minute. But whoops, come here. But one day she walked across the computer and the whole thing went. And I'm saying, who am I going to call? What am I going to do? She came walking back, and the thing turned back on again. It's like she stepped on the right buttons and repaired it. So I stopped worrying about her now. But and as long as we talk about the cat, that one I named Miracle, who was a miracle. So intelligent, lived for over 20 years, took her everywhere. But what happened was the reason a woman said, I went to sleep. A cat appeared, said, my name is Miracle. Here's how you should treat your cancer. I wrote everything down. And this is a lady with no medical information. And she said, I took it to my doctor. He said, all right, fine, we'll try it. And it cured her.
Wow.
So when one of our kids, we were always rescuing animals, and veterinarians were sending them to me. He brought a cat in the next day. I said, name her Miracle. And she is incredibly intelligent. I took her everywhere. I always said she was more of a dog than a cat. You could take walks with her, give her verbal commands, didn't worry where you went with her. And I entered her in a dog show. That's the kind of crazy person I am. And we showed up with a dog and Miracle, cat. And the veterinarian running it said, what are you doing? It's a dog show. I said, she thinks she's a dog, and I don't want her to be upset, and not be in the show. And so they let us in, and all the dogs came running over to her because, they were like, what is this thing and some of them were 200-pound dogs, and Miracle just sat there while they sniffed her. She had no fear, nothing. So she ended up the hit of the dog show. And the reason I'm telling you this is the fun was the next year, sign went up, dog show. But at the bottom of the sign, there was a line that said, for dogs only. And I knew they were saying, Seigel, don't you show up with that damn cat again. But at least the veterinarian wasn't, angry and bitter. He used his sense of humor to calm me down. Yeah.
Should we get one more? And can we ask for one that has color and is exploring the inquiry of something that you're trying to explore right now? Viviana, I see you holding yours up.
Thank you. This is my exploration. I wanted to try to portray myself and my mission. So I started with color. It has some, basically it's like, it became like my face, but it's abstract. And so I want to find the middle, like my mission in the middle of my negativity and positivity. Is like how I try to portray it. And it has some names, and in the middle, how to flow energy and equanimity. That was my interpretation into what I am, what the story of my health means to my life.
You know, it's interesting, even though you write negative, there isn't any really negative color there.
No.
The blue is, you know, I always say God is there in the blue sky and the purple on the other side. What is that like eye in the middle of it, like that other color circle on the purple?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
That's like a darker purple.
All right. Okay.
Darker purple.
Because you
So,
have, in essence, it's the page is almost a rainbow. You know, not everything lined up in order, but you've got the many colors, you know, which are all a part of your life. So I'd say it's all in there. The yellow energy, the orange, where you write flow is in orange, and that's the color of change. And the green and blue are healthy, purple, spiritual. I mean, I'd say, well, in a sense, there's sort of reddish there, you know, combining with the blue to make the purple. But I'd say, yeah, the colors make me feel good in terms of what you've used. And I would say work on creating order,
okay.
you know, like a rainbow, where everything is in its place, not just all over and like something's in the middle between two of them and that sort of thing. Yeah. Keep finding order.
I try just to represent that idea of the order that I want to find in my life, while being two poles, like two magnetic. I don't know how to explain. To find that middle realm is, as you had said, probably that's
well, like colors, let them blend together.
Okay.
Because that's why I love purple, the spiritual. You know, it's combining everything, the emotional and the spiritual together. The blue, I always say the blue sky, because to me, it's like a meditation to go out in the morning and look at the sky. And I always say, how did God figure out what color to make things? But so there is a message behind it, behind all the colors. And even the leaves at the end of, you know, fall, they become beautiful. When do people come to see the leaves? When they're dying.
When they are dying.
And their beauty is revealed. So, but don't wait till the end to uncover your beauty. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's do one more, and then we can go to some questions. Okay, who has? I see Annette.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Thank you. So I wanted to know more about. I've got severe dry eye, and my vision starts to get a little worse. And I kind of know it's age related, but still, that's what I do. And initially, I started to draw this, and I wanted to draw the sky, but it looks more like hair or something. And then, of course, you see the eyes. And I don't know what this is, but yeah.
Is there any white on that thing at the bottom, or is that just the color of the page?
It's just the color of the page.
All right. All right. You said something, and I was going to react. Your dry eyes. Well, what else did you say when you started to describe?
I said that I know that that's dry eyes, and the vision a tiny bit worse is age related. I said it's age related.
That's why I'd say, again, not blaming yourself.
Okay.
But what's the experience like? What does it feel like to have dry eyes?
It feels dry, but it feels sometimes itchy and burning. And I need to use a lot of drops and creams, and it distracts me from things at times.
All right. And think about that in the sense of, because I don't know what your life is like, but ask for help. Talk to people if you need help. Don't hide your troubles. Let's put it that way. The blue is a healthy color. If that's the sky, it almost looks like there are two eyes hidden away in there, like the two circles on one on each side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then below, again, there's some red, but the eyes that you drew in the light green, that's not an unhealthy color either. And maybe think about what you're supposed to see or not see. Maybe the eyes are symbolic through their trouble, that it's not just a physical issue, but what is it I need to see, or I'm not seeing, or, why my eyes? Or maybe what do I need to stop or not do? Or, your body isn't always being a problem. It can be directing you in the right directions through troubles, not just giving you trouble, but making you think about it. Like me, when I had dizzy spells, I thought it was awful. I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. But then I knew it was my body saying, take it easy. You're doing too much. And as soon as I rearranged my schedule, the symptoms all went away. So keep thinking that way. And what's the bottom thing?
It almost felt like my tongue or something like that.
Like your what?
My tongue. My tongue?
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe you need to speak out, stick your tongue out. I'd think about that and express your emotions, because it's in a reddish color.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I mean it. Speak up to those who need to hear what you have to say and to help you and take care of you, whether it's related to your eyes or your life. Yeah.
What comes up for me when you say with the eyes? Maybe I need to see different things.
Yes.
Because it's interesting that I got on this call. Anyway, maybe I need to see more spiritual things, because my life is, I'm quite a busy life kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That came up now. I don't know.
Yeah, you're the only one who can interpret it. You know what I mean? I can't tell you what it means. I can just make you think about, why would I do that? Yeah. See, this is why. Let me get back to my cover up. That when I started with a crayon drawing and is asked, what are you covering up? I'm a portrait painter. That was one reason I became a surgeon. I didn't know you could earn a living painting and selling, paintings. So I thought, I want to use my hands. I'll use them as a surgeon. But when I needed to relax from all the emotions and pain of being a doctor and all the things you can't cure, I would come home at night and paint a portrait. And I painted, as I said before, we had a house full of animals. So I had animals, I had 5 children, I had my wife, myself. And one evening when I came home from the hospital, every child and every animal was running away from the house. And I thought, oh my God, what happened in the house? So I yelled out, what happened? What happened? And they all said, we don't want to pose for you. And I busted out laughing, because I was always picking out somebody every night and saying, sit down, I'll paint your portrait. And they don't want to sit. So I said, all right. I'll put up a mirror and I'll paint my portrait. And everybody turned around and went back in the house. But what did I paint? I could carry it in here. It's in another room. It's full size. I painted myself with a cap, mask, and gown as a surgeon in the operating room. You don't even know it's me. And there are long sideburns too. And I didn't realize what I needed to learn from that painting. It didn't seem strange for me to paint myself all covered up and nobody knows it's your portrait. And then I read also a statement by Jung, because I shaved my head in the 1970s. This was after I painted that portrait. And I mean, everybody in the family is embarrassed. I'm being crazy, embarrassing the children. Nobody's shaving. Their hair was down to their shoulders in those days, and I'm shaving my head. Even the barber didn't want to do it. I had to lie to him, say I'll go out of town. But everybody talked to me once I did it because they knew I was wounded too. But then what Jung said was the reason monks shave their head is to uncover their spirituality. And when I read that, it was like, oh my God, if I'd only known that, I didn't need to shave my head. But when I put those three things together, a big theme in my life was cover up. You see, the painting, just all the things, the uncovering your head, the white crayon, there was cover and uncover. So I finally learned who I was through all those symbols. And that's why it's like keeping a journal. Every now and then, grab a box of crayons and draw a picture. It could be your home and family. It could be yourself at work. It could be just you. Anything you're interested in. Because I've helped people and they said, I don't know who to marry. I'd say, draw your options. And it's easy to pick out. But you see, the other is when you talk about it in a medical sense, somebody draws chemotherapy as the devil giving me poison. She'll have every side effect in the book. Somebody else literally drew it as coming out of God, like out of intravenous running down into me from God. She had no side effects at all. And some of my crazy patients, would say to the doctor, I get out of the way, I let it go to my tumor. That's why I have no side effects. There's nothing wrong with your x-ray machine. And that's why my patients became Siegel's crazy patients. But then they were loved and appreciated because you'd much rather take care of a patient who has no side effects from treatment and wakes up from surgery with no pain. That's why it's so amazing how powerful the mind is. So on my website, berniesiegelmd.com, I have an article called Deceiving People into Health. See, because I lied to people all the time. You'd say, you're not supposed to do that as a doctor. It was to make them feel better. It's like being a hypnotist. So my perfect example was with children. You come in with a needle. Oh my God. I say, don't worry. Why? This is a new sponge. I'm going to clean your skin and numb it. You won't feel the needle. And then I'd rub them with the alcohol sponge. And the kids would look up and say, oh boy, why don't the other doctors do that? That's wonderful, thank you. They were hypnotized by just that sentence. It's a new sponge, it's going to numb your skin. And it showed me how powerful the mind can be. So I taught parents as well, though some of our kids would get mad at me for using the expression, it's okay to lie to your children, but it's for their benefit, we can call it placebo, we can call it whatever we want. But I know people who have been given the wrong pills and had all their symptoms relieved because they thought they were getting the right medication and somebody in their family made a mistake. But the negative side is what you get on television, this is a wonderful new medication. It's good for your heart, but it could sterilize you, give you, make you blind. You list all those things, you're hypnotizing people in a negative way. So I always tell patients, let your family read the side effects. And then if you have something, say, is that listed as a side effect? And they can say yes or no, rather than have yourself, hypnotized into having side effects. Because one of the things that was shown, chemotherapy will drop your white blood count. People's white counts were going down on the way to the hospital to get the treatment. Because these are all studies that were done. And when there were many psychiatrists and other doctors who thought I was crazy. What the hell good is it to be in a group? How's that going to make you live longer, to talk? and they started groups to prove I was wrong. And at the end of a year, they realized he's right. More people from the group are alive than who weren't in the group, even laughing for no reason. That was one study done in one of the Scandinavian countries. Laugh for no reason every 3 hours. They had a better survival rate. And you have to remember, you're changing your chemistry. So act as if you're the person you want to be, and your body gets that message. You know, why Monday morning is a problem. Act as if. And literally, again, one student, I had to get his professor to believe him and let him do a thesis. He wanted to draw blood from actors while they were acting, and then show that whether they were in a comedy or tragedy, it affected immune function and stress hormone levels. And his professor said, that's nuts. They're only acting. But I convinced him to at least let the student do it. And of course, what he showed was it was absolutely true. If it was a tragic event, immune function down, stress hormone levels up, comedy, the opposite.
Bernie, you're doing such an amazing conversation of weaving together. It feels like you're giving this the missing ingredient of prescription, which is this marriage of play and imagination and creativity and story. And you said a couple of things that I wanted to revisit, and one of them you've repeated several times: don't shame yourself for getting that thing. You know, and I remember when I was first diagnosed with thyroid cancer, I was so in the mind-body mentality. You know, I create my health, you know, and all of a sudden to have this tumor on the side of my neck, I was so ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody. And I wrote this note to my teacher saying, I'll be gone for just 2 weeks while I have this surgery, and I'll be back, and I don't want to tell anyone. And luckily I was getting a master's in social work, and all of my teachers were therapists. And so they were like, Leah, you can't keep this a secret. You know, it's like you actually need to talk to people about it, and it's not something to be ashamed with. But I think this idea of is something really to reconcile, you know, in terms of, and I was so grateful to have them and to come out of that story and to have a path out of that story of shame. But it's something so reconcile, because here we are on one side, this where we know our minds and our bodies can give us the capacity to heal, right? And then how do we reconcile that place of where that out of alignment, that dis-ease, you know, reveals itself in our body, and curious about what you've learned from working with your patients around what stories are they able to tell themselves around meeting
One of the things I think about is not to feel guilt. You know, not blaming yourself for getting sick. It's what's happening in your life. Like I mentioned, my wife gave birth to 5 kids, including twins. She died 4 years ago, peacefully in her sleep. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. But she came down with multiple sclerosis. And I realized it had to do with the stress of taking care of 5 kids. You know, it's not what do we do wrong? We're exhausted and trying to take care of them. But that's part of what got me into holistic medicine, you know, not listening to neurologists tell me what day my wife was going to die and I'll have 5 young kids to take care of. And yeah, she lived to be 87, I think, you know, and probably outlived the neurologist. But so it's understanding that what's happening in your life, and that's the way I put it to people, what's happened in your life in the last year or two? You know, what kind of changes that may be a problem for you, so that they can see what needs to be restored. And, you know, it's like being reborn. That's why, you know, like that lawyer who becomes a violinist, that type of thing, you know, and you give up your life to please others, then you take it back when somebody says you're going to die. I mean, it's hard for me to, you know, not think of all these people. This is a multimillionaire down in Miami, Florida area. And his son came after me when I was down there speaking. And I thought, this is a survivor. This son is driving me crazy. So I'll see his father and talk to him. And we did. And the father began to really work on his life. The two things I loved, he said, I canceled the dress code at work and told everybody, I don't give a damn what you come. And the reason I learned that, I went down there after his son had come after me to speak. And the father shows up to introduce me at this big lecture in a church and, fancy stuff. And he shows up in these clothes. I said to him, what are you wearing? You look like a bum on the street. And he said, when they tell you you have a short time to live, you cancel the dress code at work. He said, I told all my employees, I don't give a damn what you wear to work. Yeah. And that's the part you begin to realize, that, oh, yeah. And the other was his wife said, buy a house on the ocean and listen to Bernie's tapes. So they did that and did a lot of meditating. And he lived for, I don't know, over 5 years instead of dying, in a short time. And the hospital learned from him. That was the nice part. They realized he didn't die because of what he did, not because of what we did, because we're telling him, he has a few months to live, and then he lives for over 5 years. So you hear those stories and it's reality, and to live it. And it's not about being a failure, because that's the other part I found tragic. We send 100 letters out to people saying, you want to live a longer, better life, come to a meeting. These are cancer patients. And I thought the crazy secretary forgot to say it's only for the people who get the letter. I don't want everybody bringing 2 or 3 friends. What the hell am I going to do with 500 people? 12 women showed up. And my wife said, they're exceptional patients. So it became exceptional cancer patients. But can you imagine getting a letter saying you want to live a longer, better life, come to a meeting, and not going? Why? Well, you may want me to read a book. You want me to draw a picture. I'm not an artist. They were just so afraid of doing it wrong. And what if I don't get better? Then I screwed up again. So they were afraid of participating. And that I found was such a sad thing to realize. You're trying to help people and they're afraid to try.
I see this question coming, which says, when quote unquote life happens and our immune system is compromised, do we surrender to the emotion, such as grief and fear, or etc., or to move forward fortification of our body? Yeah. Or is there something you recommend to protect our bodies, psyches, fields during that time when we are vulnerable to do a shock event?
Yeah, this is, as I said, you can laugh for no reason. You can take time to love your body. One of my favorites is filling my heart with love and pumping it out to my body. You can help protect your body, like that lady who laid down naked, loving, and her disease went away. So love your body. Doesn't have to be perfect. Love it. Okay? And spend time listening to your heart. One of the most important questions, and nurses have a lot of trouble with it. The psychiatrist came up after he didn't believe me and started a group to see if people would survive. I think it was with AIDS, if it would make any difference. And he noticed that, yeah, there was a group that was doing well and they all had similar personalities. Now, one of the things were you're asked to do something by a friend or a relative you do not want to do. What do you tell them? What do 90% of nurses say? Oh, I'll go do it. So who's going to suffer? Say. So if you don't want to do something, say no. That's why I loved what my mother always would say to me. Do what makes you happy. She never helped me decide anything. Drove me nuts as a kid, that I had this terrible mother. Because I'd come home and say, Ma, I had a problem and I got to decide what to do. Do what makes you happy. I had to figure out what made me happy. See, that was the problem. Yeah. And the other was, God is redirecting you. Something good will come of this. Because I came home and said, oh, what a horrible day today. God is redirecting you. Something good will come of this.
Guys,
Let me tell you a shock event so you understand. My wife died. I'll tell you several stories. She was born on 9/9, so 9 is a very important number. 9 months after she died, when I found her, thinking she was sleeping in bed, I went to wake her up in the morning, and I touched her hand. It was cold. I knew she was dead, and I felt like an electric shock in my heart. 9 months later, my heartbeat went irregular, what's called auricular fibrillation. And I thought how classical this is. The person I love has died. What part of my body goes crazy? Now, what made me know my wife is still with me? All kinds of mystical things, particularly numbers. We were married on the 11th. I started finding a dime and a penny everywhere. But what blew my mind is I go to the emergency room for my heart problem, walk in, and before I even register or sign in, a man yells, put him in room 9. And I knew, well, my wife's already here. To make a long story short, we don't have a room for you in the hospital. I thought, this is ridiculous. You got this big hospital, Yale, and there's no room for one guy. Next day, we got the room, 819. Then I knew why they waited, because you had the 8 and the 1, you got a 99. Then they put on the wristband to identify you. 8 is symbolic of a new beginning, okay? 7 days in a week in every religion. Days of the month vary, but 8 is the new beginning. My wristband, 8996633. And all the people in the hospital got tired of me showing them. Every time I got a band or a case number, everything added up to 9, you know. And as soon as I'd walk towards them and say, look, yeah, we know everything adds up to 9. I was pestering them, but I knew that she's there. And one of our grandchildren, years before, when my mother died and we began to find pennies, this struck me. This little pipsqueak, and maybe he was 5 or 6 years old. I said, you know, I just found a bunch of pennies on the way back from the mailbox. They weren't there on the way down. And this little kid said, yeah, they're pennies from heaven, from grandma. And boy, oh boy, you know, where does a kid come up with that? So I've had so many symbols, as well as our children, with numbers and coins particularly, and they couldn't have gotten there. There's no way of explaining it. Let's put it that way. I mean, if you want to hear some stories, I'll tell you. But I mean, people can't say to me, oh, well, would you expect a dime and a penny lying there? Yeah. But, you know, from parking lots, yeah, to supermarkets, to our bedroom, everything. Oh, one you'll be interested in, especially as women. I have on my hand, there are 2 rings here. One is wedding, the other is from a friend and patient, and this is from one of our children. So I got 3 bands. When my wife died, the friendship ring disappeared. And I knew my wife was saying, you're getting too many calls from women. I don't want you connecting with any other women. The friendship ring disappeared out of the drawer that I put it in every night when I went to bed. I looked everywhere, couldn't find it. Many weeks go by, and the friend is vacuuming and cleaning the house, and she yells, hey, Bernie, here's a ring. It's right in the middle of the floor in the bedroom. I mean, you couldn't miss it where it was. And I knew my wife had said, okay, I know everything's all right. You're being good. I can return the friendship ring now. Because she had a wonderful sense of humor, my wife, an incredible person. And she really showed me how important laughter was, because she did one-liners. I always say, like Annie Youngman on the stage. And you could see how the audience, their appearance improved. So I always used it as part of the lecture to say, how do you feel right now? And then 15 minutes later, how do you feel now? And that they understood how their emotions really were changed by that kind of humor.
How do you know? How do you know when you're trying too hard to care for your child?
And it's hard when your child can't communicate with you. But I think you have to keep verbalizing, letting them know you love them, touching them, not blaming. Two things from one of our children. One, when he had a pain in his leg and I told him to take a hot bath and he said, I need an x-ray. I thought, a 7-year-old doesn't ask for an x-ray. He must know something. And he had a tumor. And I thought he'd lose his leg in his life. And a couple of days later, while we were waiting for him to have surgery, he said to me, Dad, can I talk to you for a minute? What is it? You're handling this poorly. This is a 7-year-old giving me a sermon. He said, we want to go out and have a nice day. You want us in our room depressed? So I'd say one of the best things I can say is to try to allow the person, yes, if they're handicapped and problems, it's hard, but to have their best day. And not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, but how can I enjoy this moment? The other is, since he was one of the twins and the fifth one, and a really good kid, he's in the bedroom at the end of the hall. So what's your interpretation? They don't love me. Look how far away they put me. And he came to me one day and said, I don't get 20% of your time. I said, what are you talking about? You got 5 children, but you each get 20%. And I said, your brother's driving us insane, so he gets 40%. And you begin to realize the troublemakers get more attention. But he was special in the sense of his coming to speak about it, where most kids won't. And I think that in any way you can show love, as I said, touching, visiting, being, talking, just any way you can. Even putting something, if your child's in a hospital room, putting something up on the wall as a gift or something, even like a picture of you hugging her or something, to try to get the message across in some way. It's hard. Our kids weren't happy having me as a father because I wasn't normal. I shaved my head, I did all these crazy things. But ultimately, they learned something. And they started coming home from work and school, walking in the kitchen saying, hey, Dad, thanks. I said, what are you thanking me for? I didn't do anything. I did something at work today. And all people said was, well, his father is. So they were able to do things that were not right, but I got blamed for it. And that's when they thought, hey, it's not bad having an abnormal guy as a father. But I'd say communicate with consciousness too. Send love. You don't have to verbalize it. And touch, massage, make a big difference. Because what I've learned from another friend, Amelia Kincaid, whose book is Straight from the Horse's Mouth. Imagine meeting somebody saying, what do you do? I'm an animal intuitive. My reaction, why don't you say you're crazy? What do you mean you talk to animals? But she taught me how to communicate through consciousness. And just to make a long story short, while in Africa and California, she told me where to find lost pets in Connecticut and described it. So I learned how to quiet my mind and go into our pets' minds and talk to them. Like if they ran away from the house, I'd say, hey, it's getting dark. Come on back. I don't want anything to happen to you. And they show up at the door. So we can talk to each other through consciousness too. So I'd say with your child, when you're together, make the thoughts of love, embracing, loving, touching, and as well as verbalizing, but to create that kind of aura and feeling.
Bernie, one of the questions that I'm having is the caretaker. So oftentimes we focus on the patient, and the caretaker becomes so part of it and their narrative and their story. And curious if you have any guidance for that type of things.
I used to say to patients, I need to hug you, and realize the first two words were I need, because I got hugged. And I began to apologize after a couple of years to say, I'm sorry that imposing myself. And they said, we knew you needed a hug. It was no problem. So you don't have to apologize for putting it that way and getting hugged. And I'd say, it's okay to ask for a hug. So you need something, ask for it. See, that's why I just said that a few minutes ago. You ask for a friend asks you for a favor you don't want to do. Your right answer is no. So you can ask them for favors and help. And if they don't want to, they can say no. If they're doing it out of guilt, that's their problem, not yours. But it's okay to ask for help. I need a hug. And go and get some. And tell the people you need it. And, the animals make a difference too. After a heart attack, people who had a dog in the house, this one doctor looked it up. I forgot the exact survival rate, but it was dramatically better than those who went home to a house with no dog. So even with your handicapped children, having a pet, something soft and furry to pet, can make a difference, to be with you and keep you company. And I even wrote an article. My friend Princess is lying on the floor next to me. But because what I noticed was, after my wife died, the article is entitled My Two New Girlfriends. The two cats created a schedule in which they were with me and taking care of me. It's amazing. I mean, one's on the day shift, the other the night shift. So if I get in bed, one gets with me. If I do something with the recliner, meditation, treatments in the living room, the other one's there to accompany me. And I realize what a difference it makes to pet fur, feel that fur and that love. So you want to live a longer, healthier life, get a pet. And it doesn't always have to have fur. I mean, well, one study done in a nursing home, and this is something, if it's possible, to give to your child. The people in the nursing home had plants put in their room. One side of the hall was told, we're decorating your room. You don't have any responsibility. We'll water it. The other side said, you have to take care of this plant we're putting in your room. We want you to get it out in the sun. We want you to water it and take care of it. At the end of the study, which I think was about 3 or 4 years, more people were alive and well who were told to take care of the plant than across the hall from them who were told we're decorating your room. So again, I'd say to any of your children, give them something to make them feel worthwhile and to make them feel responsible for it. It made them, oh boy, I keep saying this because I went through a lot of trouble. Our house was a zoo. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to kill insects. The kids would yell at me, take it outside, don't kill it. But I realized they had a really treasured life because all these creatures were our pets. Everybody had a name. Oh, I got to tell you one interesting thing. All the eggs were hatched in the house in incubators. And one year, these were ducks and geese. Comes the fall, the school bus shows up. We live on a dead end, big circle. So the bus pulls up and our kids start going down the driveway. And guess who's going with them? All the ducks and geese. And I mean, literally, the kids got on the school bus and all of them are trying to jump up into the open door. And it touched my heart because who did they think their parents were? They pop out of an egg. Who do they see? They're in some kid's bedroom. So who do they see? They see the kid, and that becomes their parent. And it's amazing how these connections happen. And thank God most of the bus drivers were nice, friendly guys who didn't scream at me for all the craziness because it impressed them. And I can't help but tell, George keeps telling stories. When it got crazy around our house, I took a whole bunch of ducks and geese to my mother's because they lived off a lake. 2 days after we did it, my mother called me. I have a question. What is it? The ducks and geese come out of the lake and walk half a mile up to the road every time a school bus shows up. What's going on? I said, Ma, they're looking for our children. It broke my heart, to think I have separated them from their parents. But yeah, keep working with your heart. And if you can communicate with that child, because I don't know if you can, but to try to talk about feelings and love and anything you can do to make them feel better and just try to be there. But I think your presence and your touch make an enormous difference. Music can help, the surroundings, the drawings, colors, all those things. And I don't know if she's capable of drawing, but you could even bring a box of crayons and put them out open and say, draw a picture for me and see what color she picks up to use. That will tell you where she's at. What I love to do when doctors, when a patient comes in and says, my doctor told me I have 6 months to live or 2 years to live. I say, I'll tell you what, I'll put up the money. Tell your doctor you'll bet $10,000 you live twice as long as he predicted. And no doctor ever says, sure, I'll bet. They say, well, you could live. I'm not going to risk $10,000. Then why did you tell me that? So part of what kills people is what they hear. But it's, what can I say? It's living your own script and sermon. And it's not about trying not to die, but it's about trying to enjoy the day. And my father's father died when he was 12 years old of tuberculosis, leaving a wife and 6 children with nothing. My father one day said, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. My father died when I was 12 years old. I said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, it taught me what was important about life. And he was always busy helping other people. It was amazing. Drove my mother crazy because she would always say, they may never pay you back. And he said, that's not what's important to me. And he taught me about forgiving also. And just letting go and trying to help people live their life. So again, I'd say, do what makes you happy and realize what life is about is your opportunity to contribute to the world. I'm just about finished reading the entire Bible. I decided to do that from page 1 all the way through. I don't know how long it's taken me. But I have to say, Jesus and I grew up Jewish, so we have a lot in common. And it's about loving. What's the message? How did he accomplish all the things he did? And I learned the answer was faith. Let me tell you a true story. In my past life, I was a knight in Ireland, and I've had many interesting things happen. Well, let me tell you one, and then don't let me forget to come back to my story. A woman, one of my group members, called me and said, Bernie, I'm in premature labor. They think I'm going to have a miscarriage. Could you come and help me? Nobody wants to talk to me, be in my room. So I went up there and I said, let's do a meditation. Let's communicate with your uterus, send it love, get it to relax and stop the labor. So we went through this guided imagery and meditation. Her labor stopped. I said, we're going to be okay. And she went on to a full-term delivery. And I may add, when I walked into her room, I had to yell at everybody to say, get the hell out of here. Because everybody there was in a panic, making her sicker. Because they're all, oh, it's horrible. Look what's going to happen. I said, get the hell out of here. I scared them. So they all, doctors, nurses, family, they all ran out of the room because they didn't know what the hell is wrong with me. Then I got a phone call from her many months later. Bernie, we gave birth to a boy and naming him after you, but we're Irish. So we're calling him Brady. And I don't think that's any coincidence. And matter of fact, I even adopted a dog because it was named Brady. I mean, it's just crazy how you go to the shelter and say, what's that dog's name? Brady. Okay, I'm here to take him home. And it just goes on and on. So I, in my past life, was a warrior in Ireland. And one day I was told, kill the neighbor's daughter. He's causing a lot of trouble on our land. And I said, why don't I kill him? She's not the problem. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story because it's very upsetting. But the young woman I ended up killing was my wife. I spent hours sobbing. But I now, of course, realize that when we met in this life and got married, we healed the past. But when I went for therapy, after having that experience as a past life, and I didn't go to a therapist. I mean, it just came to me when I was alone flying across the country and sort of drowsy in the plane. But anyway, I went to see a Jungian therapist and I said, my Lord asked me to kill the neighbor's daughter. He said, Bernie, you hear what you're saying? What? My Lord. I said, yeah, it's the Lord of the castle. No, Bernie, it's your Lord. You have to go and relive this. And boy, did that sentence was incredible therapy for me, because I've always questioned, and I mean this, Abraham and Jesus. If I were each of them, if I were Abraham, I would have said, take me, leave my kid alone. And oh, I wish I were Jesus, because I would have jumped off the cross. I said, you see the miracles I can do? Now everybody pay attention, listen to me. Yeah. But he said, Bernie, it's a matter of faith. You have to know your Lord. And I went back and I relived it. And it really changed my life. And I understood everything about myself and my wife and our relationship and everything else. So have faith. When you have your Lord, have faith in your Lord. And then you don't question what you're asked to live or do.
Bernie, I wanted to pick up a thread that you've been weaving throughout our day in terms of talking about the hypnosis that can be in prescriptions, when we start seeing things or when we're told things, and either from doctors about we're going to die or the possible side effects or medication. And what I'm hearing you talking about is breaking spells. and the power
What?
of what I hear you talking about is how to break a spell. Like a spell has been cast. And I'm curious, after having witnessed so many different people do that, if you have any guidance in terms of how do you snap out of the hypnosis? How have you seen people kind of break out of the narrative and the story that they've been told is going to happen into living the true capacity of their body or their will to live over someone else's idea of what is possible?
Well, sometimes it's somebody else coming into your life who makes you feel loved and changes you. Other times it's you having to decide to be someone else. They say, act as if you're the person you want to be. So you have a choice. They're not imposing it on you. I mean, I can remember reading many stories from concentration camp survivors to try to help my patients survive. And their attitudes were what led to some of them surviving. When they were busy helping others, coincidentally, their life was saved because they were busy helping someone and so not sent to the gas chamber. It's just following, that's why I say, your heart, and do what makes you happy. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but your way of contributing to the world, and it makes you happy, then things will happen that are no coincidences, and they're the people you meet and the good things that happen to you. I keep thinking all these stories I hear, sure, they don't always happen, but you're fired from your job, on the way home, your car breaks down. And I don't make up these stories. Somebody pulls up and says, hey, do you need help? Yeah. So, all right, get in, I'll take you to the garage. On the drive to the garage, he said, what's going on? Oh, he said, I just fired from my job today. I'm driving home. And what do you do? He said, this is what I do. He said, oh, I'm looking for somebody who does that kind of work. So he's got a job now. And the guy stopped to help him because his car broke down. If his car didn't break down, he wouldn't have a job. So again, I don't judge. I don't know what's good or bad. I said, let's see what the outcome will be. And if you can get your kids to grow up, that's why I didn't know how lucky I was to have the parents I had because of all their problems and all the positive mottos they had. Because believe me, it doesn't make you feel good as a kid to be told, do what makes you happy, or God is redirecting you. What the hell's wrong with you? You're not helping me. I got to make a decision. I got to do something. But I used to talk to God a lot because my parents were no help. They never decided anything. But that's what helped me. I probably wouldn't even be a doctor. I probably would have been in the business world with my father or something of that sort. So when he learned I wanted to be a doctor, he wasn't particularly thrilled with it. It just, I can't help you. You want to be a doctor? Fine, go be a doctor. All those things. And, the intuitive. The only C I got in 4 years of college was in creative writing. And I now have 19 published books, I think at least 19. My sense of humor, I did write to my college and say, can you raise my grade? Then I'll have the highest, magna cum laude, summa cum laude. And they wrote back this serious letter. See, people don't have a sense of humor. I mean, the letter was, we can't alter grades after graduation. I thought they'd laugh with this guy writing them saying, go from a C to a B and I'll have high honors. But how did it happen? Somebody came up to me after I gave a talk and said, do you ever think of writing a book? No. I don't know how to, I'm not a writer. I'm an artist. So no. He began to talk to people. And the next thing you know, I get a call. I got a whole group of people who'll help you write a book. And what did I do? I talked it. I sat down with a tape recorder back in those days. This was in the 80s. And I talked for hours and hours and hours. And then they typed it up and turned it into Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And then I learned how to use my mind and to be able to write, to listen to what's in me, not just thinking, but that intuitive side, the storytelling side. My whole life has been a mystery. I'm trying to write one more book, which I'm not doing very well because I get so involved with the pets and everything else. But I want to call it Life, Mystery, and Miracles, because of the things that have happened in my life. Just as a start, my mother was severely ill with hyperthyroidism and told not to become pregnant. It could kill her. Her mother said, I want a grandchild. So she became pregnant. And then was in labor for weeks because her body was so weak. Couldn't survive a cesarean section. They finally pulled me out. I didn't learn this till I was an adult, because in our family album, there are only pictures of a covered carriage. So I thought I'm asleep. But my mother said they didn't hand me a child when they pulled you out with the forceps. They handed me a purple melon. That's her exact words, because of the hemorrhage and the swelling and all that. And she said, we put you in a carriage, covered it, and hid you behind the house so nobody would get upset. And I said, how the hell did I survive? Kids don't survive if you don't touch them. And she said, oh, my mother took you, poured oil all over you, and pushed everything back where it belonged 4 and 5 times a day. And I can tell you, your life is stored in your body. 50 years later, with a shaved head, my wife and I went to get our regular massage. The therapist said, I'm really busy today. Can my wife do one of you? I said, fine. We love your coarse hands, so you just take care of my wife. I'll go to your wife. A woman's hands on my shaved head and face. I went back to being an infant. All those memories were stored in my body. I was in a blissful state. After I don't know how long, probably 15 or 20 minutes, I opened my eyes and there were 24 people standing around the massage table. I said, what the hell's going on here? I'm having a massage. The husband said, we thought you had a heart attack or a stroke. We couldn't communicate with you. You were gone. I said, yes. I became an infant again. I had to tell them the story. So believe me, folks, your life is stored up in your body. One of the people in the hospital who called me to come to our room, who said when I woke up after the heart-lung transplant and they said, what do you want to eat? She said, chicken McNuggets and a beer. She said, I've never had those. And they all think I'm crazy. Can I talk to you? She began to have dreams and realized that a young man was the donor of her heart and lungs. And they had conversations in her dream. And he told her his name and he said, we're together forever. I asked the hospital, was that the name of her donor? We are not allowed to reveal the names of donors. So we looked up the newspapers, obituaries. Her family did all the research and there was his name and they called and yes, it's his heart and lungs. The young woman had taken a motorcycle ride after she left the hospital. They said, oh, that's his birthday. He loved riding motorcycles and was killed in a motorcycle accident with the chicken McNuggets tucked in his sweater. And he loved beer. And she wrote a book called The Change of Heart. Her name is Claire Sylvia. So believe me, folks, your life is stored in your body. And that's why let your body know you love it. Okay? Problems happen, yep. But give it love. And it's amazing what things you can do and changes you can make. Let me just say these two
Yes.
questions, a quick short-term answer. One was about, happy persons and circulating endorphins. Yes, if you're happy and we draw your blood, that's why when you study actors, if they're in a comedy, stress hormone levels go down and immune function and endorphins, everything goes up. The other was committed suicide versus saying died from suicide. It was coming close. Yeah, Carl Menninger. Oh, he became a big friend of mine. And his sense of humor. I said, my father-in-law is, 92. He said, I wish I were 92 again. He was having his 94th birthday. But he said, suicide is not a simple thing. He said, when you think about it, you have to be willing to kill, murder somebody. You have to be willing to hurt other people who care about that person. And I thought, really, many of the books he's written and everything else, Man Against Himself, that all these things are not as simple as they sound. Oh, he committed suicide. Yeah, but what about his family? How do you think they're feeling today? And what he's done to other people. So I think all of these, it's better to look into them. Yeah, probably is better to say he died from suicide, so that you're not just talking about him committing it, but all the effects it has on people. Again, be a love warrior. Yeah, I mean, I have been so impressed by saying to people, I love you. Now, and the effect it's had on them. And I'm saying this when they are violent and screaming in the streets, and you don't know what they're going to do. And I walk over and I say, I don't know what's happening in your life, but I want you to know I love you. Every single time thus far, they have walked away in complete silence, and everybody in the street has helped me. And what taught me, I mean, I have a book called 365 Prescriptions for the Soul. It's a message you can read every day. And I forget what's in it. It happened years ago. And I came to a time we were up on Cape Cod, terrible summer traffic, a kid in a car behind me, a teenager with his girlfriend, screaming, cursing. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And it's like, it's my fault. I'm the car in front of him, for all the traffic. I said to a cop, would you tell him to be quiet? And I couldn't believe the cop. That's not my job. It just blew my mind. He's disturbing the peace. He could say, so I got out of the car with all our kids yelling, he could have a gun. Stop, don't do that. I went over to his car. His driver's window was partly down. And what George said through me, because believe me, it's not something I made up. I said to him, I'm sorry, your parents don't love you. I want you to know I love you. Now, I said it in the other order. I said, I want you to know I love you. I'm sorry, your parents don't. And I turned and walked away. He made a U-turn, total silence, and drove away. And I hope he went home to talk to his parents. But it was incredible, the effect it had on him to say, I love you. And I've done that, as I say, to other people on the street. And I don't know whether they've got a gun in their pocketbook or in their pocket, or I just say, I'm sorry for whatever's happening to you. I want you to know I love you. Yeah. And I make friends with homeless people. I don't mind buying them a sandwich or giving them a few bucks. and just trying to make their life a little easier. I can't help it.
Thank you so, so much, Bernie, for your generosity and for your gifts and for your commitment to healing in all of the ways. It is very, very appreciated.
Yeah, I'm sure because of what I said, you'll all send me some money, right?
Yes. Coming your way.
See, that's the part of me that needs therapy. You know, I say these kinds of things and people never know. You know, I told you about the psychiatrist in the post office, right? Yeah, because I said, when people say to me, how are you? I say, I'm depressed. I'm out of my antidepressant. My doctor's away on vacation.
Oh wait, they don't know the beginning. So Bernie has a thing about when you meet somebody, you don't ask them how they are.
Yeah, you say you're looking well today, you know, and I try to train people. So when I went in the post office and I have trained them over and over, and the guy said, how are you today? I thought, oh, I said, I'm depressed. I'm out of my antidepressant and my doctor's away, so I can't refill my prescription. And the person behind me poked me in the back, and I turned around and she handed me her card and said, I'm a psychiatrist. I specialize in depression. Maybe I can help you. And then I laughed so damn hard. And everybody in the post, because this was like COVID line. So there's this long line, and they're always all wondering, what the hell's he laughing at? And I explained to everybody, I'm not depressed. I am a doctor. I'm just tired of people saying, how are you? Who don't really want to know. Yeah. So now, yeah, because this has happened too, and it's fun. There's a local grocery store. I walked in, and the new cashier said, how are you today? I'm depressed. I don't want you to ask me that anymore. From now on, when I come in, say, you're looking very well today. And out of the back came an old-time employee who immediately saw me and said, oh, you're looking very well today. And I said, see how much better you feel when you hear that? It couldn't have been planned any better. Because, people in the store wonder what the hell's wrong with him. Yeah.
Thank you. I will
But
send.
remember, one other thing, as I said, love your children. It's the greatest vaccine made. But also remember, you free your children by embarrassing them regularly. Because our kids have thanked me for not being normal, because they got away with things at school and work when they did things that weren't in line. And they heard people say, why did he act like that? Why did he do that? His father is. So they didn't get punished. That's literally what they heard people say. Well, his father is. So what do you expect? Yeah. So they stopped complaining when they realized it was an advantage to have an abnormal. I see all the comments, the chat. Remember my website, BernieSiegalMD.com. Not only my books, there are other things there too, but the books are about all kinds of topics, because we get people to send in stories, and it's amazing. Can I tell one?
Of course. Who am I to stop? I know that some people might need to go. Please tell me.
This is a very quick one. A friend of mine, her daughter was killed by her boyfriend. And the other, grown daughters said, let's get dad a present. There are only women in the house. It's his birthday. Let's get him a male dog as a gift, so he'll have something. And they went to the shelter. It wasn't a shelter. It's a dog breeder. And they picked out a dog. And actually, the dog picked them out. Let me say it this way. They came into this room. There were a bunch of dogs running around. The breeder blew a whistle. Everybody stopped, all the dogs. But one dog ran over and jumped in the husband's lap. And the breeder said, oh, my God. And they said, what's the matter? That's the dog your daughter picked out a year ago that somebody else had already asked for, that she wanted for her father. but the people had to bring it back because they couldn't take care of it. Now, how does that dog go and run and jump in the father's lap? You know, that's not a coincidence. So that's why the book is called Love, Animals, and Miracles. And it's just many stories from people's lives about the animals. And a lot of them are from our, creatures in this house. We broke every zoning law, but nobody ever complained because they knew we cared about all these bizarre exotic creatures that literally veterinarians didn't know what to do with them. People would get them and then say, I can't take care of this. And they'd call me and I'd say, sure, send it over. And our kids would, take care of them. Our house was totally bizarre. I mean, I'm laughing, remembering, it's like the animals knew. We have one daughter. Every time snakes got loose, they always went to her bedroom. Now you'd say, why? Because she's the only one who was afraid of them. And it was so funny because when the snakes were missing, they hear Carolyn go, ah! And everybody'd say, oh, we got the snake now. It's in Carolyn's room. And we'd go and pick it up. But it's like, how the hell did the snakes know to drive her crazy? And then the boys would know and go pick it up.
Bernie, thank you for bringing so many miracles and giving us a way to continuously see the synchronicities and the miracles and just the love of life itself.
Let me tell the men to give themselves a pat on the back. It's a hell of a lot harder to get men to show up for anything to deal with emotions than women. Women have better survival rates for all cancers than men do. And it ain't about their hormones. It's about their attitude towards life. I'll close with this. These are quotes from patients. I can't die. Why not? I have 9 children. I can't die till they're all married and out of the house. 20 years later, her last kid got married and she died. I couldn't believe it, that the cancer was still in her body for 20 years. And what do the men say? I can't work anymore. What's the point of living? And their wife and children are sitting next to them. And I say, turn your head to the left. There are a few good reasons. Yeah. So women have better survival with all these, diseases than the men do.
Thank you.
Peace be with you. Our family was having an argument, the 5 kids in the kitchen. And I went in and I said, you may choose peace or you may choose conflict. Now, our twins had a hearing impairment because our wife was exposed to German measles during the pregnancy. And our daughter, after I said, you may choose peace or you may choose conflict, said, I'll have pizza. And the argument was over. Everybody's laughing. So it is so therapeutic. Whenever anybody's fighting, I say, you want pizza? And then it all stops. So use that therapy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.